All right, thank you very much. With us now is Abraham Enriquez. He's a former Trump surrogate and Republican strategist, and Doug Burns, former prosecutor. So, Doug, let me start with you. Authorities say alcohol, no factor, but he hit something, doesn't know what it was, could have been a person.
Unbelievable.
And keeps on going. That seems to be the biggest issue here. What do you think?
No, I couldn't agree more. It's less about alcohol in this particular instance, although he did have an alcohol-related motor vehicle thing a couple of years ago where he actually pleaded guilty. I note that not to smear him in terms of this event, but it sounds less about alcohol and more about his fitness to continue driving at that age.
Yeah, I mean, Abraham, to Doug's point, the incident does come more than 2 years after Pelosi pled guilty to drunk driving. So how does this play in? Does it play in the fact that he's had prior incidents?
Look, Napa Valley is typically famous for their wines. That is no longer the case. It is now famous for the place that Paul Pelosi can't seem to find his brakes. And look, the I hit something but don't know what it was doesn't really, it's a really tough sell for someone who was driving a convertible Maserati in the middle of the day, in broad daylight, in a small, tiny street. So look, I think patterns become a trend. And what we're seeing with Paul Pelosi is exactly that this is exactly a trend. But what's really surprising is kind of the PR management that follows the Pelosi family that we as private citizens just don't get. And I think understanding that gap is critical in this situation.
Doug, I think that this is probably a discussion a lot of American families are having.
It is, yeah.
And it's when you have an elderly parent or spouse and they may have been great drivers, but they aren't so great anymore. The DMVs don't seem to be playing the role that they need to in this. So how do people who hit something, have no idea what it is, how do they still have a driver's license?
No, you're right. There should be better enforcement. I mean, I'll never forget my wife's dad had been a great driver. So it's funny to hear you use that term. And, they took the keys away from him, my wife and her sister. And he was, kind of devastated because it's like, you're not going to be driving anymore. But at the end of the day, he took it in stride. So to go to your observation, ED, of course, DMV should do reevaluation of the ability to drive and stuff like that. And on the case itself, legally, I just want to point out that there are two factors that are always huge. And that is, was anybody injured or, God forbid, killed? That doesn't appear to be the case here. Not defending him, obviously. And then B, was he intoxicated? Most people will leave the scene because they are intoxicated, by the way.
Interesting. All right, Doug Burns and Abraham Enriquez, thank you very much. And by the way, the California DMV is going to be reviewing whether he should still have his license.
Yeah, I think they absolutely